Okay. So today I wanted to talk about when I first started, um, basically my healing journey. I didn't necessarily consider it a healing journey then. Um, I just wanted to, I actively, consciously wanted to heal, but I never knew it would be a whole healing journey. I never knew it would spawn off into all of these other things. But if you watch like my episodes and my platform even and just kind of watch the growth of everything as far as like what I've put out there for the world to see, you'll probably think that my awakening started when I was in like 2022 is when I started posting the most. Um, or even 2020. But it was long before that. Anybody who's followed my other page, my personal page, and decide to come to this platform and watch my growth, then you'll see that I have been. I think the first couple times I started posting about meditating was when I was 24. That was in. Now I got a math. Jeez. Okay. Um. Around 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. It was 8 years ago. So 8 years ago from now. Yeah, that's 2017. Okay. Yeah, 2017. So in 2017, on my other platform, I made a post about my birthday. Basically, I always have these long dramatic posts on my birthday. Um, and so I said, "Welcome to 24. This is what my 2020. Ugh. This is what my 24 looks like, or something like that. I don't know." And I was just kind of meditating in a pose, and yeah, with my mudra and everything. And um, okay, so yeah. So realistically, though, when I was 17, yeah, and that 17, 18 years old, so my senior year in high school, basically, that was the first time because things had shifted, people had moved away, and like I'm from a family of five. Hold on, y'all. Okay. So, and um, there's nothing but love from my family. The way we grew up is a little unorthodox to the people that we were around, and I say that for a few reasons. I did mention before that we're a mixed family. I did mention before that we moved a lot, um, and my both of my parents are go getters. Like they, neither one of them came from rich, um, beginnings. So but their entire purpose driving them was to make sure that us as kids never had to deal with half the shit that they ever had to deal with. And number one, they were both born in Mississippi, so number one, to get the fuck out of Mississippi. I think they realized early on that Mississippi could be a trap. And not to talk shit on Mississippi, just the area that they're in, they felt growing into it that they witnessed people get stuck there. So they didn't want that for themselves. They didn't want that for the future for the family that they wanted. So that was their whole driving force, and that put a lot of pressure, but also a lot of random moments of chaos. On top of the fact that both of them had their own trauma to deal with that they were carrying, not knowingly, not knowing that they're acting and reacting based off of that. Um, I mean, you don't just grow up in a situation that's potentially harmful and not carry that or not project that even on other people. So it was a lot of it was a lot of things. Um, Disclaimer: I'm not here to bash their story and tell everything about their story. That's not the purpose of this. I'm only talking about me and how I've had to heal from the certain things in my life, and they just happen to be a part of it. So I love them dearly. I still have communication with them on a regular. Just went over there the other day, actually. And we've been lately on a journey of trying to heal things together. We're all on separate tangents, so. And anybody who's ever tried to do a healing journey with family members, oh my god, you know it. Sometimes it's the worst because there's actually a fucking name for it. Um, because sometimes as since I've been healing since I was young, they have not been healing since they were young. We're not on the same level at all, or even, you know, close when it comes to a spiritual rank or even like emotional rank. And I was blessed enough to start from a better beginning, if that makes sense. And so I've had the capacity to learn and see these things and even prompt those things within them. It's hard. It's hard being the the lead on the healing journey within your family. It really is because sometimes you get chastised. Sometimes you become the black sheep. Sometimes you become you end up getting belittled. Sometimes you end up getting pushed out in the sense that you're only accepted if you're a version of yourself that is palatable to everyone else. So it's been a long road. Been a very long road. So with all that being said, um, I've literally been out here trying to heal my bloodline, and that's why life has been so hard. And on top of just trying to heal my own things, my own dramatic and feelings and trauma associated with the things with um, essentially my childhood and even adulthood. And a lot of stuff came through adulthood. There's a lot of things that happened and a lot of things that I didn't know. Like I kind of came into this world very naive in a lot of ways simply because um, and a part of that is actually because they didn't want their children to deal with the stuff that they deal with. So we were sheltered a lot. And so I kind of came into this world a little naive with a lot of things. On top of being super fucking sensitive. Like, that shit is wild. I don't recommend. Anyway, so what I want to talk about though is that a lot of people want to talk about their spiritual awakening as if it's just this one pivotal moment. But for a lot of people, not just myself, it's actually, for a lot of people, it's gradual. There's certain things trying to trigger you to wake you up all throughout life. And sometimes for a lot of people, it does take a lot of things, and then it takes this one moment that makes it all click and puts all that stuff together, and that's their pivotal moment to say that was my awakening. I'm not like that. That's not my journey. My journey, I was born awake. I could tell right off the bat certain things weren't right, and being a mixed female is probably why. Because you get to see the ugly side of a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And it just kind of, I never was the type to get lost in that, as in, like, I never got lost in, or I never played along with everybody's personality when it came to how they were acting and reacting in negative ways and hateful ways. I was just a person that kind of took a step back, saw how they were acting, called it out, and kept on moving. Either they took it or they didn't, basically. Um, Now that most of that is like middle school on up, because in my childhood, of course, I'm still learning things. Like, you can't really hold me to that, but in my childhood, I was just very, very sensitive. I cried a lot. I would feel a lot of different energies at once. Um, Although I never knew how to communicate that. I would just be sensitive and cry, and so of course I was dubbed the crybaby of the family. Um, and nobody really knew why I was crying all the time, other than the fact that um, if I felt like somebody hurt me, I would say they hurt me. And it wasn't just like physical, like if somebody accidentally did something. It was um, the energy and the way that they treat people. It would hurt me. It would literally hurt me. Now I know that I'm a freaking empath, a specific type of empath that I mentioned before, that I found out there's a whole name for what I am, which is a Hioki empath, and I can reflect the people around me without even meaning to, without even sometimes without even being aware of it. Now that I know, I'm more aware of it and I can catch it. But anyway, that's probably a whole nother post that I can go down talking about that. So, oh, when I was, we're gonna fast forward a little bit. I was conscious and aware as a child, but as a child, I wasn't aware enough to know all of my that's not even that. Let's see. So it's not that I wasn't aware of my actions and reactions, right? But as a child, I didn't have a whole lot of actions and reactions other than crying. Um, I didn't know what certain things were. I didn't know how to navigate through a lot of things when it came to being an empath, when it came to being sensitive, when it came to even experiencing the things that we experienced by moving a lot. Um, I say a lot. I moved a lot in life, but as a child, we did move, and that was kind of a dramatic move for all of us. But um, so if I had to pinpoint a moment of where I know for a fact I was awake, right, like aware, it was probably we moved. So when we moved, I was 10. I was 10 years old when we moved, and we went from like a very mixed area. Everybody loved everybody, or it was either they loved you or they just didn't mess with you. Like, there was no issues. They had a military base there where we lived, or close to where we lived. So, any place in America that has military base, well, number one, if it's right on there, it's typically the ghetto. But the area surrounding, at the very least, is it's a mixed type of people. Like, there's no one race, there's no one attitude, there's no one mindset. So we went from that and everything just kind of flowing in that sense to moving to an area that was predominantly one race, that was predominantly one mindset, in the South. And we were already like, we were in Virginia. We moved from Virginia. Virginia is where I was born. So anybody that's been over there on the coast of Virginia, it's pretty blended over there. Moved to Lower Alabama. At the time, predominantly white. It's grown up a lot now. A lot more people have moved in the area. It is what it is. So lot of different attitudes that I wasn't used to, my family wasn't used to. And it was just, and don't get me wrong, both of my parents are from the South. They're a mixed couple. They experienced some shitty things being together, both being from Mississippi. But well, I guess once they started moving around, things got a little different. But and it's case by case, scenario by scenario, place by place, because there's certain people still in these like blended areas that still have opinions. I'll put it that way. um, so of course they still ran into people that didn't approve, basically for no fucking reason. In my eyes, love is love. I'll always say that love is love. Doesn't matter who it is. So long as the relationship, the situation is healthy, love is love. But as a child, the only thing I knew was what I knew, and what I knew was, people come together, or they don't. They don't do all this backhanded stuff. They don't do this micro aggressive shit. They didn't do this passive aggressive shit in regards to like race, in regards to religion, in regards to even how well you're doing. There's just so many freaking different attitudes that were kind of thrown in our faces when we made that move to even more south. Because Virginia is technically south, it's just in the middle. So I first became aware when I was 10 years old. Prior to that, there's moments that I remember for sure. I was aware, because there's certain things that were happening, or that's happened even in the past prior to that, that made me aware. Life was not perfect by any means. And even though certain things were hidden from me because I was a child and I either wouldn't understand or it just wasn't none of my business, it's grown folks' business, I was still aware of a lot. So, but I wasn't aware of full situations because a lot was being held from me, and I was more aware of the attitudes. I was more aware of the emotions. I specifically remember before we moved out, being in Virginia, and my mom was upset about something, and I caught how she felt just by walking by, like the door frame of her room, and she was like, the way that was set up, when you walk into the room, you have to walk a good little ways to actually get to the back and then get into the bathroom. She was in the bathroom back there. I didn't even see her. I didn't hear her. I walked by her door frame and felt something was off. And then I went in, I kind of peeked in. Then I see her come out of the bathroom and she's upset. And so I run and grab my sister. And I was like, I think something's wrong with mom. I think something made her upset. And I told her who I might have thought it was about. I was wrong about that, but I felt the feeling. And so we went in there and we talked to my mom, and she was very upset. But that's what I mean by being like an empath and not knowing fully how to talk about that or what that even means. I just know that I felt things very early. And I was aware that I felt things very early. Now I'm going to fast forward. Life lifed like it lifes. And fast forward into some teenage years. And of course, that gap between like middle school to high school is when they're really trying to indoctrinate people, right? Like you really have to start learning the way of the world basically, and you learn that through school, like showing having to be at school at 8 in the morning, not getting up until 5. Like they're programming the whole system of how the world works with making sure you know how to operate within a job in that sense. Like you have to go to a job, be there 8 to 5. You have to sit in a desk all day. You have to learn what you need to learn, and then you need to apply it. So during that time frame, of course, there's like a dormant stage essentially. Like I'm still feeling things. I'm still attracting certain people that essentially needed some form of healing from me. But the only thing I knew to do was to listen to their story and to show them love and hype them up. Like hype them up in the way that they look or the energy that they bring. Anything I could pick apart to make them feel better about themselves. I would. Um, I've always been this way, is what I'm really getting at. I'm saying all this just to say I've always been this way. Like, I was born freaking awake and aware and in a healing energy, ready, just fucking ready. And I didn't know all of what I know now. That's a fact. All I knew is that I had to keep loving on people. And I genuinely loved loving on people. That's all I knew. And I'm not sitting there, I'm not trying to say that I wasn't the villain in somebody's story, because I'm sure somewhere along the line I probably have been. But I think that really only came later on in life. I started getting agitated with taking shit. uh, but I can say the journey itself, going through some of the things that I've gone through with all of these things and more. There's a lot more that I'm not saying, and I'm not gonna say, because that's putting someone else's business on Front Street, and I'm not like that. Again, this is just about me. So there was a lot that I had to heal from in general that I didn't know I was carrying. So again, fast forward to my teenage years. My teenage years was the first time, because of all the circumstances and things changed at that time, that I was actually able to focus on myself. I had nothing but time to sit there and look at myself. And so, and prior to that, it was more of I had to go along with the group. I had to just do what everybody else wanted to do. I never really got to where I would form an opinion basically and get everyone to do that. Um, I was definitely the follower of the group. Middle child syndrome as well. So I got to take the step back and take a look at how everybody was with each other, um, and not be a part of that. And of course, that comes with good and bad. One, I'm highly fucking observant. I can tell who you are just by watching you. The other is I felt neglected. So there's that. So during that time frame of being able to have more time to essentially be by myself, it wasn't that I was fully alone, because I wasn't. But it was more of I don't have to cater to everybody else's wants and needs. I don't have to go with the flow with what everybody else wants. It was finally a time where I could start making decisions for myself. And mind you, I was still living with my parents. I was in high school, so there's not a whole lot going on that I could do. Um, and then add to the fact that my parents were pretty strict, so it's not like I was out in these streets doing a whole lot of things. I literally only was able, outside of school, able to go to, I was in ROTC at one point, so, and I got on the drill team. So I was only able to go to our practices and then I was only able to pick my brother up from his practices. So it wasn't like I was out here just doing all kinds of things in the sense of making those type of decisions, but it was more of like I can make the decision to, or even on the weekend, just do whatever the fuck I wanted to do. I didn't have to go with the group or with um, half the group and go do what they wanted to do all day. And so, with being able to have that time to reflect and look at myself, it was more of learning myself at that point. It wasn't even a reflection at that point. I didn't know what I was reflecting on at that point. I didn't know I was carrying um, massive amounts of baggage. So I was able to learn myself though. I was able to establish my own routine. I was able to get up and do the things that I actually enjoy doing. And in the midst of that, I got into exercising. Um, I was already exercising prior to that, but I got into my own routine outside of like ROTC, and even like my parents like to exercise, so they run, workout, stuff like that. But I got into my own routine of starting to lift weights. I got into my own routine of starting to run. I got in my own routine of even starting to play around with a boxing bag. I don't want to say I was boxing because I wasn't like I wasn't doing anything good with it. I was just doing the 1-2 and building up the stamina and the strength in my arms at that point. So, and then I was able to like go on walks when I needed to. And this is all small, tedious shit, right? I was able to go on walks when I wanted to. There was a lake at one point, when the last place that we lived in that area, there was a lake not too far from where we were. So I would walk to the lake, sit by the water all the time. I would play basketball. I would swim. Like I got into these routines of things that were active, but I physically enjoyed myself. Um, Even though I did a lot of the by myself, and I genuinely enjoyed my own company, and it was the first time in life I was able to enjoy my own company. Not necessarily even enjoy, just be in my own company. I didn't have to think about anyone else's feelings or anybody else's thoughts or what anybody else wanted to do. I literally was able to sit. If I wanted to go walk to the lake and sit by the lake all day, I was able to do that. And that was the first time I was able to ever fucking do that. And I think that's natural in a lot of ways. Um, just because once we get in our teenage years, we do start having a little more freedoms. But, and that's different for every household, because I know a lot of people that were out, they were able to go wherever they wanted to go. They could go party, they were out drinking, um, doing all kinds of stuff, right? And I was just happy to be able to walk to the lake. Like, I didn't even care about all of that stuff. I didn't care to go party. I didn't care to hang around boys. I didn't care to do all the things. I did want to hang out with my friends, but again, strict household, so um, some of that got, some of that wasn't able to happen. But it is what it is. Like, I got to experience life in the way that I want to experience life after the fact, so I'm okay with that. Like, it is what it is, and I understand that some of that came from like my parents' own personal beliefs, my parents' own personal backgrounds and things, again, their traumas that they're carrying, and they didn't want anything to happen to me or my other siblings either. So it's like, it is what it is with that. um I don't think I really hold anything about that, other than the fact that as soon as I got my freedom, I took that shit and I didn't want to look back. The only thing that actually prompted for me in like um in a way, I can't say a negative way. That's what I was thinking about. It wasn't negative, but when I had a semblance of freedom, I fucking took it. And as soon as I got a hold of it, I was not looking back. So we're gonna fast forward to 21. So at the age of 21, now this was back in 2013, 2014. Some of you know I went to college. So when I was coming out of college, is when I had came out of college, went back home for a little bit. During that little bit, I think it was like a year. Went and lived with my parents again for a year. During that year, I picked up a job, just started saving up as much money as I can. I had a plan to move to the neighboring state because I loved the area and it just brought me so much peace, so much calm. So I wanted to live there, and I still underlyingly do. But things got weird at that time. And it prompted me moving in a different direction. So when I took a trip to South Carolina to visit my sister, her and her family were just starting out. Like, her and her husband got married, they have a kid, and so I went up there and visit, right? And that prompted conversations of me moving up there. Which I didn't want to do, which ended up being an underlying factor later on that I had to deal with within myself, because I was again making a move based off of I reverted backwards. I went into making a move based off of what someone else was saying and wanting that I cared about, instead of making the choice and decision for myself. And that was instilled in me to keep doing that. And there was like this emotional emotional, y'all. It was an emotional burden basically placed on me that if I did not help out the family members that needed help, then I should feel guilty. I should feel bad about it. That basically I should pour all my time and energy into, if they need help, into helping them. And so carrying that emotional burden, I carried that for a long time, even though it wasn't even necessary after a certain point. I didn't know how to shake it, didn't even know I was carrying that. So anyway, at that time frame, made a decision that wasn't based off of what I wanted or needed. Made a decision based off of what someone else may have needed, even said they would want and need. And it just shifted my whole life. But at the time frame, I needed to leave because I had got a taste of freedom, and there was a lot that needed to be hashed out and done and talked about between my family dynamic, but nobody wanted to talk about it but me. So went ahead and made the decision to move. Before I moved, I came to each individual in my family that was still in that area. So that would have been my parents and a sibling. And I had a conversation with them and hashed things out that I may have been carrying. I couldn't hash out everything because I didn't even know everything at that point. So I pinpointed certain things that I was able to realize and recognize at that point in time that had affected me. So, talked to my sibling at the time. There wasn't much to hash out. It was just like certain random feelings, and then I allowed for them to tell me, certain feelings that they felt towards me as well. And we cried together. It was beautiful. It was a great moment, right? Get to the parents. One didn't accept what I was saying at all. It was an immediate, how can I word this? I don't even know what to call it. There are therapy terms for this, but I don't know what to call it. So it was immediate reaction and feelings of saying, you shouldn't feel that way. That was never your burden to carry. Um, you don't need to feel that way. It was all about the fact that I didn't need to feel that way. And I'm like, you act like I asked for this. I didn't ask for any of this. I'm just noticing, and I'm at a point where I'm aware that these things have affected me negatively. And I just need to talk about it and hash it out before I move hours and hours away, to where if I don't, the relationship is going to be strained and I'm not going to want to talk to you. I'm never going to want to deal with you because now I'm away from you and I'm away from those negative feelings. And talking to you means I have to keep revisiting the negative feelings that you don't even want to address. Like, that wasn't what I'm saying now, is like an overview of what was going on. It's not what was said in the conversation, because I didn't know how to communicate every little thing. So I'm not going to act like I'm perfect with that. But I did state in a very calm manner the things I was able to pinpoint and talk about and notice that affected me negatively. And I was like, well, this affected me negatively. And I remember this and this, which I can see affects me negatively now too. And it was just automatically, you shouldn't feel that way. Don't feel that way. It was disregarding my emotions is what it was. And then it automatically went into the story of their life, basically. The story of their childhood being this, that, and the third. And mind you, at this point, I already know their story. Like, we've talked about it. I've always been that type of energy or that type of person to listen to people's story. The same thing within my family. Anytime they've ever had something they need to talk about, they end up talking to me about it. At that age. So, the other parent just kind of, went with the flow of it, apologized for, the fact that I may have felt that way. And that, stated they didn't realize that would affect me. No issues with that. So with that being said, I moved. I moved. Yeah. I left quick, fast, and in a hurry, because it was like I was at a such a, like, emotionally mature level to be able to want to talk about things, to be able to go ahead and release things at 21 years old in a scenario where not everyone else was able to do that. And I think underlyingly, it was just really the simple fact that they didn't want to see or hear me hurt, because they did so much to pour into me to make sure that I didn't have to deal with the things that hurt them. But that doesn't negate the fact that I still experienced things, and they affected me negatively in certain ways. And even the patterns, like, I started noticing some of the patterns. Lately I've been going back through all of my journals. I have tons and tons of journals that I wrote in, and I would write poems and songs in them. I didn't write like a Dear Diary type of situation. I just kept writing poems and songs. And it was this repeated cycle over and over and over again of, I love you, I want to love you. And then flip side is not being able to trust, not feeling that sense of security, not feeling stable emotionally, and certain other ways with otherwise. Like, it wasn't just emotionally, It was just a look. The journals that I read, so I went back and I've gone through three of them now. I mentioned in the storyline that I wanted to start a project with it. So I started going back and rewriting some of the stuff based off of how I speak and talk today. And it's just this constant fucking loop that I was in based off of the family dynamics energy and what they were going through. And I had to get out of that loop. I absolutely had to get out of that loop. Now, mind you, when I got out of that loop, that doesn't mean I was out of that loop. Just because I left the people didn't mean that that loop ended. I thought it did, I hoped it did, it felt like it did. But then that loop started playing out in my own life. And then I started a whole new loop that was in regards to another a family member that I was around more. And that played out negatively in my life. It was just bro, the life of an empath is not an easy life. Oh my gosh. And even being aware, it's not easy because you see all these things and it's like you see people trap themselves and it's so fucking heartbreaking because it's like, bro, you can stop your own loop, you can stop your own hell, but you're choosing to stay in it. Yeah, I've been talking for a minute, so I might do another episode on this. But to add to, because I mean, it really is a long story. I'm just summing some of this up to talk about, the simple fact that some people do have that pivotal moment. I was not one of them. I was born this way. I didn't just become an empath because of a narcissistic relationship. Like, y'all really try to dwindle things down to, oh, some man did you dirty when it comes to females, and then, or you just got daddy issues. And it's like, first of all, everybody to some extent does have like a mommy issue or a daddy issue in some direction. Even the most loving, caring, coddling parent, you will have some form of an issue because of your own personality being different from them. And it's something that you either need to unpack and release because it was traumatic to you and you may or may not be aware of how you're acting that out. Um and for some of y'all just don't want to deal with your shit. And you know what? That's your prerogative. It's your choice. Just know that certain things will keep perpetuating your own version of hell over and over if you don't find a way to release it. So, yeah, that's a short snippet of my life. Um, I think I'm done for the day. My mind is clear, very clear right now. Can't even think of a direction to go next. Yeah, so stay tuned.